omelette de fromage. I did GCSE French.
That's obvious. That's clear.
Got a B in it.
Really?
Yeah.
I got a B as well.
Got a B in it, yeah.
MashaAllah. A B means you're mujtahid.
Le week-end dernier, je suis allé au cinéma avec mes amis.
MashaAllah.
Is this what you remember just from GCSE?
J'adore une tasse de café, s'il vous plaît.
You know the only thing I remember.
Poulon.
I asked my teacher, how do you say, I don't understand? Je ne comprends pas. For some reason, it's the only thing I remember. But it gets me out of trouble.
What about French though? Ok, assalamu alaikum. Bienvenue sur le podcast de Islam 21C. Je m'appelle Salman Butt. Il s'appelle Ahmed Hamouda.
J'habite en maison.
Nous sommes en France. Le France. Assalamu alaikum.
Oui.
À France.
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Ahmed Hamouda and I, what might be the last few days of our membership of the European Union, we thought we'd try our best and sneak in a quick trip to Le France.
Rinse our privileges before
Yeah.
they're taken away from us. Do you feel free, Dr. Salman, having entered France,
feel
the
a lot
land
of
of freedom?
Liberté.
You know, apparently here you
and
can do
solidarité.
anything you like, you can say anything you like,
Really?
and you can wear anything you like apart from a bikini.
Oh yeah, I wasn't planning on wearing one of those.
Please, no. And you can say anything you like, so long as you're not Professor Tariq Ramadan.
Speaking of Professor Tariq Ramadan, what a coincidence.
Subhanallah.
We came across Professor Tariq Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Very nice
Assalamu
to-
alaikum.
Ça va?
Alhamdulillah.
Ça va bien, merci.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. We're really happy that you invited us to your home. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Ahmed is a big fan. Me, myself, I'm just kidding, a big fan as well. You've been through a lot. We want to kind of use this time to get your stories out, get some of your lessons out that you've from the thing that you've experienced recently. But Ahmed had a few questions before we start, because he's aware of your work, about identity and being a European Muslim, and your background from being of Egyptian heritage. So Ahmed was wondering, how Egyptian are you really, and how French are you? And we were having the kind of wager on the way here that I was pretty confident that you'd prefer a croissant or maybe a pain au chocolat over a
Ta'miyya.
tamia.
Ta'miyya sandwich.
Tamia sandwich. I don't know what it is, but because
I'm not too sure myself.
I'm familiar with pain au chocolat and croissant,
You know nothing about
I would
Tamiya.
assume. No?
No. I like both, to tell you the truth. So I still think that dealing with this, I kept on repeating for years, and I still think that that's the reality. That the political climate and the cultural climate is pushing us to just say, oh, what is your identity? Who are you as one thing? Which I think this is the wrong way of putting things. The starting point as a principle. Who are you? I say, I'm a believer, I'm a muwahhid. La ilaha illallah everywhere on earth.
I'm
But does it-
monotheist.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that the pillar of my identity is who I am, wherever I am. Now, there are many other dimensions that we are taking from the surrounding cultures, societies, histories, memories, and we have multiple identities with one pillar. So the pillar of Tawheed is one Islam. But now the cultural dimension means that, as I was saying, Ta'miyya is part of my culture because I like it, and it's part of my memory. So I'm Egyptian by memory, by taste, and by the cultural dimension. But at the same time, I'm a European. And you are European. The way you are joking together right now in front of me, This is not Pakistani or Asian. This is very much a European way of. So you are culturally from here. But to be from here culturally doesn't mean that you are no longer from there on all the dimensions that are bringing you. So we have to be very clear on this. Universality of Islam is the unity of the main principle of Tawheed and the diversity of all the identities that we have wherever we are. So we take from wherever. Everything which is good on earth is ours. So we have multiple identities.
It's fascinating, Professor, Jazakallah khair, that the vast majority of the famous companions died outside of Medina. And I heard in one report that up to 400 companions are buried in one city in Damascus. And we have some buried as far as Turkey. And this is the first generation. They saw it as their own burden to spread Islam despite the huge benefits in dying in the city of the Prophet. So maybe this emphasizes that point of universality of Islam. And maybe this is what distinguishes it from the other religions. Like maybe Judaism, they monopolized many of the aspects of it to a particular ethnicity, particular creed. Maybe with Christianity to a particular era.
Western Europe.
And the white man.
The Orthodox kind of traditions. Hinduism, an obvious one, the Indus Valley. But the thing with Islam is, it's a verb. It's not based on named after a person or a place. Assalamualaikum guys, sorry to butt in, but if you're enjoying this podcast, please head over to islam2nc.com/donate to help us make more. And if you're not enjoying it, head over anyway and help us make better ones.
It's a verb, and we can add to this that we have a very specific definition of universality, which is not us as a specific culture, us as a specific language, us as a specific history. It's us as believers and understanding that we are connected to God, and He's telling us, Ardullahi wasi'ah. So wherever you are, wherever you go, I'm here. I'm here. And for me, when I was in jail, I remembered what the judge said in Egypt because he was spreading and distributing flyers about a demonstration. And he told him, look, if you want to end up with us, just find one cell where there is no God, empty of God. You are not going to find, because Allah is everywhere. So the point here that he was responding to this means that if you are repressed, or if you are attacked, or if you are free, get it right. Wherever you are a believer, so you are with God. This is the centrality this is the universality of your message, saying, with this in my heart, I can take from wherever. So it's not based on my ethnicity. It's not based on my color. It's not based on my memory. It's not based on my history. It's based on my humanity. And more importantly, it's in my heart. And the heart has no color, no social status. We are all equal. And the only thing that is going to differ, or is going to just create a hierarchy between us with Allah, is the piety. Exactly, it's your taqwa, it's your God consciousness and your God's awareness, Allah's awareness in your heart. And that's very important for us to repeat this, and especially now, because we are in societies now. You live in the UK, I live in France now, have no option because I cannot leave this country. And you see around you that the people are scared. So when you are colonized by fear, this tawheed is your liberation. It's the way you can liberate yourself and come back to the universality, because fear is stressing on our differences. Universality is stressing on our similarities. And this is the message of Islam.
The thing about universality, though, I mean, it's a bit of a dangerous one as well. I mean, like the whole thing of, where on earth do you not have Chinese food? Is in China, because they just call it food, right? But so to mark something make means to provincialize it and to universalize something, kind of it could be that somebody is just trying to create a false universal, like the whole, colonization, white supremacy, imperialism.
You're
that
right.
was based on the idea.
You're
of
right. If and only
universalizing.
if you confuse universality with imposing one dimension of this universality. What I'm saying is exactly the opposite. Universality is based on acceptance of diversity. Why Islam is a universal message? Because with Tawheed, which is the only universal principle on earth that you have to get, La ilaha illallah means my universality is integrating diversity on an equal footing. Everything which is good everywhere on earth is mine. So it's not my culture imposed onto you, it's my principle sharing your principles and bringing together our common principles of good, which is completely different.
And accepting good wherever you find
Exactly,
it.
exactly. And I have a very simple way of putting this in the discussion. Say, you have a good idea, it's mine. You have a bad idea, it's yours. Keep it for you. So that's the intellectually speaking, it means what? It means that at the very beginning, the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, they were intellectually open to everything. This good idea is ours. Intellectually, they were aware. So deep with your faith and open with your mind, and you get this, that the good, that wisdom is the last property of the Muslims. So it's a saying, it's not a hadith. So we take this as something which is essential in our mindset, in the way we deal with this. And this is why the people are, they are scared of people who are not scared. Because we are not scared. I'm not scared of being a European. Say, what's the point? There's not a problem. And by doing this, by spreading peace, you have people who are ready for war.
So you mean you're not even if one uses Tawheed as a kind of central universal to be accepting and reach out to others, there still has to be obviously that line where obviously if somebody disagrees with Tawheed, there is at that level a kind of us and them, no?
Yes, of course. But that's the starting point. Is one of the great specialists of Islam in Japan, Izutsu, was saying, in fact, the Islamic paradigm is based on dichotomy. It's Tawheed versus not believing in God. And for us, that's clear. Is that now the starting point is there is Tawheed and there is for us the centrality of God. Now, does it mean that we are at war with everybody who is saying no? I say no. The point is that lakum dinukum waliyadin. What is going to come between you, I will never accept for you to oppress or to be unjust. If our relationship is based on ahd, principles, agreement, that's fine. Go your way, I will go my way. So with a very clear understanding of the centrality of Tawheed, everything after this is based on a legal agreement. A legal agreement that it's not only about, tolerance. This word of tolerance, if you think about it, it's a problem for us. Islam requires more than tolerance. Why? Because by saying, I acknowledge the fact that you are here, that you don't believe in God. Who told me this? Not the reality. Allah, in His book, is telling me, you will have believers and people who don't believe. And you have to deal with it. So it's not my tolerance. I'm not suffering your presence. I have to deal with it by the very essence of Allah's message. That's essential.
Professor, shouldn't it though trouble us that we are here in the West with the message of Tawheed, which we believe it to be the message of salvation, and others still see us as a foreign entity, see the message as a foreign entity, despite if we surrender to the fact that Islam is universal, it means that Allah has created human beings to accept Islam. So there is no reason for them to reject it except one of two things. Either they are doing it out of stubbornness, or they are doing it out of our inability to clarify the message to them. So surely there needs to be more insistence on delivering the message of Islam, and we should be troubled if people don't accept it. It troubles me to see my fellow colleagues go to the hellfire, mathalan, or to see my fellow sinners be punished and so on.
Even suffer in this life.
Yeah, but you have to deepen your understanding here, because you say we have to be troubled by what is happening. Look at what happened at the very beginning. The Prophet ﷺ was from the people of Mecca. When he and the people around him accepted Islam and came with Islam, they were made strangers in their own society. You are saying we are perceived as people who are not from the society. He was from the society. He came with Tawheed, and then they say, you are not one of us. So it's even deeper. It's even more troubling. So the point here is that the very moment you are going to say the word of Tawheed, and coming back to the principle here, the very moment you start with this, you should know that even some of your people, culturally speaking, historically speaking, are going to say you are not one of us. So you are in Britain, you are born here, you come with a Tawheed, and you are troubled by the fact that people are saying, who are you? You're not one of us. You
kind of signed up to this by being a Muslim in the first place.
That happened exactly it was even deeper and more troubling at the very beginning, that you are my brother, out of blood, and now you are no longer my brother because you decided to be a Muslim and to say La ilaha illallah. Knowing this, remembering this, which, a dhikr is to remember Allah, but a dhakira is to get teachings from history. And we are not doing this. We don't understand that people from the same family, when one said La ilaha illallah, he was going to kill him because you are a danger. You are in danger for what? For my own peace, but also for the power, the structural power within the society. You come. And the people are saying, you know what, these Muslims, they are coming now, there are millions in this continent. So it's a reverse colonial presence. They are coming back now and they are going to take over.
Yeah, Professor, it's because Islam, in its nature, is a reformist religion. It doesn't accept the norms of any other system. It comes to change. So I completely sympathize with us trying to assimilate or to accept the other, but there needs to be an element of challenging the other's norms and customs and to change them. And that means we're going to become unpalatable. Is that the right word?
Yeah, or unpopular.
Tasteless.
I would say you are right and wrong. And I think that if you put it like this, you are going to be, perceived as scary for the society. If you say, I'm here to change, period, and you don't explain what you mean by this. What I'm saying, and I would go along what you are saying, is that, look, I'm here, and what you will find me doing by being here, I'm not going to reject everything in your society. Once again, I come back to the very origin of Islam. The Prophet, peace be upon him, entering into Medina, he didn't change everything. He looked at the society. Everything which was good was kept. But what also happened is that the first thing he did, setting and building a mosque, I think that this is something which was important. But the second thing he did was to go to the market and to start changing the rules. Be careful. Power, it's not only in the power structure, the political side of the equation. Money is essential. If you say to the people here in the Europe, we came, we settled down, and now we are going to change, and say, okay, we got you. In fact, you want to take over. We're not saying this. We are going to build on what is already good in this society. So we are an added value to the society based on
eventually, I mean, if somebody works against oppression, against dhulm, against the problems, the social ills in society, those who stand to benefit from the status quo will eventually paint them as extremists, as some kind of fifth column, as some kind of invading force, and using these narratives.
That's exactly.
Even though our narrative is what we're bringing, the suggestions, the changes, the improvements that we're suggesting, is good for you. It's good for business. It's good for society. The more Islam, the better.
The first thing that you have to do is to explain just what you said. It's not only good for me, it's good for us, because we are trying to reform the society for the better. Now get it right. An agent of peace, wherever she or he is, should be ready for war. That's the reality of jihad. Is not a call for war, it's a call for peace. We are agent of peace. What we want is justice, peace, inner peace, social peace, political peace, international peace. But to do this, you have to resist the oppressors, the people who are ready to kill, the people who are ready to colonize.
And
you have
those
to be
who may prevent the message from reaching their people, because if we again go back to the universality of Islam, we need to give the privilege of the da'wah to everyone. There will be forces on earth who prevent the ummah from being able to spread the da'wah. So there has to be an element of, call it active jihad, aggressive jihad, not to impose the ideology on the citizens, but to remove the forces who stop the citizens from being able to hear the words of Allah. And this, I feel that this privilege is given to all of the systems apart from Islam. So they want, others will want to spread democracy by force in certain regions of the world, and others will want to spread other communist ideologies, but it stops at the doors of Islam. You must only resist.
Yeah, I agree, but I wouldn't use the word that you used by saying no. But that's essential.
The English language is a bit poor.
No. But that's essential. Part of the equation, it's the words that you are using. And remember, when you study the Quran, you know how words matter. That's that the verse is put in that way, and that this word is coming after that one means something that you need to get. Okay, you have to deal with it. When you read from the Quran that the way words are put matters, you have to check your mouth, and you have to check the way you speak. So this is why, if for example you say an aggressive jihad, and I say, you know what, I would say a wise jihad. Wise why? Because you are true. All the means of information now, we know where they are and who is now controlling this. These people with money and everything. Now, we may not have the money, but we have the numbers. We may not have the money, but we have the skills. Look at what we are doing now. What we are doing now is to find another channel to let the people hear what we have to say. So, وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ. When you are facing the enemies, you have to prepare yourself. It's not just to look at their means and to use the same. It might be that the white jihad is, okay, I got you. You are coming from here, I'm going to come from there. So while I'm going to use other means, and this is wisdom. Wisdom is also, if I don't have the means to face your power, let me check my mind to find another counter power. And we are now dealing, all what I'm doing, while before I went to jail, I started thinking about a book on a manifesto of Islamic liberation theology. And the main concern for me around this is that the liberation theology, it's around the concept of counter power. So it's not to be obsessed with the power, it's to understand the way you deal with counter power dynamics. One of them has to do with media. One of them, you say, why don't they want us to speak out, to be vocal? Because they know the power of what we have to say. If you say, for example, you know what, you are black, you are white, you are Asian, you are whatever, I'm on the side of the oppressed. Because La ilaha illallah means in my heart, wherever I am, I'm on the side of the oppressed. Muslim or people of other faiths.
And you call it liberation, Professor. I mean, many people will see imposing religious doctrine on them a type of, especially in the institution of a state, a type of theocracy, a type of restriction. So you are using a word which is accepted in the Western narrative, which is liberation, to introduce something which is considered restrictive. So how, maybe some people, non-Muslims listening, will be asking, how can something like a theology be a liberation?
But we might here disagree on our understanding. I have a question for you now. What are you going to impose?
I mean, I would call it a liberation because you are liberating people from their lusts and desires and so on.
Let us don't avoid playing with words.
Okay.
What you, as a Muslim, a British Muslim, or living in Britain, what are you going to impose into people?
I think we need to impose the right to speak. It has to be imposed. Otherwise,
the right to speak.
So
you are not imposing a thought. You are not imposing a system. You are lifting an imposition to keep quiet. It's the opposite. So it's not to impose. Because if you use the word impose, the understanding is, oh yes, that's fine. You want to bring us to the time of theocracy. And by the way, Islam is not a theocracy. Theocracy has to do with Christianity, not with Islam. Not with Islam. We are not confusing the clergy system with the state system. We are not doing this. We are for election from... This is the way it was done, the majority process, even with the fatwa. We are not coming with one deciding for, there is no pope deciding a fatwa for the world. No, that's wrong. So even a sheikh does not impose his fatwa. His fatwa is a proposal. So what are you imposing? So be careful, because the way we speak sometimes reinforces the perception that we are bringing back old Christianity. All imposing Christianity, while we are trying to say we are coming with Islamic liberation, which means we are freeing your heart and your mind. And what does it mean? Be free to think, be free to speak, be free to travel, be free to decide even your religion. Because this is the very essence of Islam. I cannot impose onto you to believe, so it's your free choice. Let us start with this.
But I think part of the problem is the coincidence of the word religion as well in a European context. If you tell somebody Islam is a religion, so was Christianity, we're talking on behalf of some kind of religion, spreading it in whatever way, the average kind of European mind will just see flashbacks and hear echoes of what they understood as religion, i.e. Catholicism or some kind of repressive clergy or Christian kind of Christendom.
You are right, but this is where, instead of only coming with our understanding of religion, in fact, let me put it that way. The way we understand definitions and words, for us, is very natural and very consistent. Because in our understanding, there is no contradiction. It's clear what we mean.
You mean in Arabic?
In our semantic and words and from Arabic to even our understanding. Now you have an understanding of religion coming from the Christian tradition. Instead of saying, you know what, in Islam, religion, it's not enough because it's beyond, the cult or the spiritual practices. It's much more about our relationship with the world. When you say this, in Islam, you tend to let the people think that what you think in Islam is not what is in Christianity. I'm doing the opposite.
This is where the mix-up has happened.
Yes, but my strategy, my intellectual strategy to open up minds in the West is say, okay, come. I have a question for you as a Christian. Are you with God on Sunday and with the devil on Monday? Are you not trying on Monday to implement the ethical values that you had on Sunday. So if you are trying your best to be ethically consistent with your spiritual life on Monday, on Tuesday, does it mean that your understanding of religion should be widened? I never heard a Christian telling that's completely silly. Of course they understand that. This is what we say. That is say, between your prayers, you should be consistent with God. So with Allah, and that's the point. So sometimes when people are throwing at you definitions or questions, my intellectual positioning is to question the questions and to redefine the definitions. Because part of the jihad today, that I call the wise jihad, is an intellectual jihad. It has to do with semantics and definitions. And our starting point would say, about this, but not only this. Or for example, say, okay, you want to talk about terrorism? Come, sit down. Let us talk about the definitions. Because state terrorism, just to go and to kill 500,000 Iraqi because you close the borders and there is this boycott. How do you call it? This is terrorism without weapons. And it's the terrorism of the powerful, but it's terrorism because you are killing innocent people.
It's the power of the discourse.
Sorry?
It's the power of the discourse. It's the power of the narratives. It's the power of the that's why the person who is speaking, the person who gets the privilege of making those definitions or using them, they can.
You are right, but I would say for the young generations of Western Muslims, I would like them to be aware that the starting point of everything with the Tawheed is to be intellectually and verbally equipped to challenge the definitions, because the starting point is just if you just look at the way you know how it started after September the 11th, when they say we have the victims of the terrorism. So the president of the United States of America is saying we are victims. You are victims with all the bloodshed and what you are doing around the world. You present yourself as victims. You have to stop here and start questioning the notion of victims and who are these people and why they are doing it. Not by justifying what they are doing, but challenging what you are doing as the powerful on earth today.
I mean, on Islam 21C, I try put conscious effort to maybe not even using some words and having I have like a growing list of untranslatables. I put in their deen, I put in their Iman, things like this, because it's hard when you say Iman is faith, then you cause echoes in the mind of the reader of faith being something, a uniquely Christian kind of notion of, maybe believing in something without evidence, or something that you keep private and don't bring into the public domain. Assalamu alaikum guys, me again, reminding you to head over to islam21c.com/donate to keep the lights on Islam 21C. We pride ourselves on being independent and being funded by the grassroots community.
So why don't you do exactly what you are doing? I would say that this list of untranslatable words that you have, I wouldn't do that. I say, you know what? These are words and notions that are so rich that you need sometimes to come with me, to go along with me to get the full understanding. So in fact, what we have, the polysemy, what is called the multiple meanings of words. This is where you come and say, my language, or the reference language of the Quran, Arabic, one word means so many things. Instead of saying, you cannot get it in English, I say, let me give you all what it means. For example, Iman. It's faith, but it's a space of security. Amen. It's a space of peace. It's a space of reconciliation. So you put all this just to make them understand. If you reduce my language to your unique or exclusive definition, you are now not making justice and doing justice to my language. So it's the other way around. Instead of saying you cannot get it, I say, okay, I will invite you.
An essay to explain or elaborate, or
not an essay, just
conversation.
We need what are you bringing to Britain? Are you bringing to Britain just words against words, or are you bringing quietness, time to understand versus quick, fast food, fast, and you are bringing peace. So I would say that intellectual challenge is just to ask the people, sit down and listen.
Professor,
but we need also to have some of our brothers and sisters doing this, and that's the problem, is that sometimes we want to be as fast as the others, and we lose everything on our way.
The narrative is controlled by the powerful in the world today. Some will argue, and actually it's very convincing, that certain words are purposely left undefined, but they are charged with negative connotations so that they can be used unsparingly against the Muslims.
I'll add to that as well that maybe it's a kind of cynical reading, but I do wonder sometimes who makes the decision and for what reason to translate something as to not translate something. So when in kind of mainstream media, when they're talking about the creator that Muslims believe in and worship, they'll say Allah. They won't say God. Kind of making it sound foreign. They'll talk about jihad. They won't talk about the meaning intended.
With subjective interpretations, depending on the context. I mean,
and even like examples of groups. I was wondering,
like
why do they say Islamic State for Daesh, but they'll say Al-Shabaab, or they'll say Hamas. They won't translate the meanings of.
And certain thinkers aren't called terrorists; they're called radicals. Groups will be called terrorists.
Radical used to be a good thing.
Exactly.
Your book was radical reform, but now after
9/11, it's a very good notion anyway.
In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we know that the Quraysh disputed as to what they should call the Prophet ﷺ. Interestingly, they settled on the word sahir, and they said هذا سحر مبين. This is clear magic, and many of the scholars of tafsir will say to you, this is oxymoronic. You can't have clear magic because magic, by its definition, is obscure. So the analogy of today is that we have become victim of obscure terms. The term extremism. What does it mean? Oh, you're just an extremist. Fine. We're in a position these days where we can't deny it. So what I'm saying, Professor, is we need to define these words ourselves and demand a definition for these words before they are used so loosely. Surely.
I agree with this, and I think that we need linguistic mujahid. Get it.
First we need to define jihad, and then
no. We agree on the fact that jihad has nothing to do with spreading war. It's really about spreading justice and dignity for human being, and it's resistance and reform. This is the double movement of jihad. Linguistic mujahid means what? Means that, I'm sorry, I look at you, you are young British Muslims and Muslim British. That's the job now of the new generations of people who are born and raised in this country, to come back to the terminology that they find in the Quran, the words that they find in our tradition, in the hadith and everything, and now to come with a powerful discourse from within and say, look, the way you define jihad is wrong. This is the definition. The way you define this, the way you defend that. We come with our own terminology. If you start by saying the narrative is set by the powerful and you end the discussion here, that's not exactly right. The narrative, in our history, the narrative is imposed by the powerful but could be decided by the resistant. So we need to get with this. This is the work that we have to do. I'm sorry, the new generations of all this, that, we have a generation of Muslims who have PhDs and masters, and now they are visible in the society. You come and you ask them about who they are. They are linguistically colonized by the dominant narrative. That's double colonization. You don't know yourself, and you speak about yourself with the words of the others. So it's a double alienation.
I was intending on asking you about the metaphysical colonization of our minds and how this has affected the Muslims in the West. Primarily because we have looked at the West. We've seen that they are very powerful militarily, and physically. We've seen that they have very great working systems. So we have derived, and it's probably an illogical derivation, that they are morally correct as well, because they are physically strong, and they have working systems, and they are academically strong as well. That means, by their definition, they must be on the moral high ground. So that then the Muslims, unfortunately, have started also to aspire to resemble them morally, when we have the greatest moral system on the earth, even if physically or academically we have fallen behind.
I'm not sure that if you travel around the world, in the global south, for example, where you have the Muslim majority countries, wherever, I'm not sure that the Muslims, or even the oppressed, or the people in the global south, have this impression that the economic superiority or the scientific superiority mean moral superiority. I don't think so. I think even the opposite.
Because they suffer the consequences.
Yeah, but I would say that I would say that if I listen to the people at the grassroots level and even at the intellectuals, they would say the opposite. You say they might be scientifically superior, or politically superior, or economically superior, but morally they are lost. It's just decadence. And this is very often what the Muslim would say about the West. I'm sorry to tell you something, is that if you look at the situation in the Muslim majority countries, morally speaking, we are not at the best for the time being. So instead of having this competition on the moral ground,
who's worse?
I would say who is worse and why they are succeeding. There is something which is clear. That if you are obsessed with economic growth and political power and superiority, whatever the cost, and they can kill innocent people, of course, it's immoral, and you can be successful and immoral at the same time. For us, success without morality is not success. It's to be lost. So we need to reconcile our understanding of moral ground with what do we mean by being successful. So my understanding of our relationship with the West, from within as Western Muslims, or from outside as Muslims in the global South, is based on something that I kept on repeating. We reject the West, but we like the West at the same time. There is something in us which is an internal contradiction. We don't like them, but still we like many things that are coming from them. And we have to clear our mind. What do we want?
Some would go so far as to say we are them. We are part of the West.
But we are. Yeah. But this is where we need to clarify our mind by saying, which part of this West I'm taking and saying, that's me. Everything which has to do with justice and freedom and improvement, scientific improvement, this is mine. But when it comes to trying to get an understanding of how do we have to reform, morally speaking, our society, this is where we have to be much more self-critical, look at ourselves, and not compare ourselves with the worst, just to think that we are good, or to think that they are good because they are superior on the economic ground. We need to clarify, the parameters on which we are dealing with. Yeah, exactly.
Professor, maybe we should have started with a better introduction of yourself, to be honest. You are Tabarakallah, the Professor of Contemporary and Islamic Studies at Oxford University, although you are taking a short lull. director of the Research Center of Islamic Legislation and Ethics. A long list, mashallah, tabarakallah, of institutions and universities and research centers that you had, which I couldn't mention all of them, to be honest, because of time. But fascinatingly, for a number of years, you have been considered one of the top 100 influential thinkers in the world. And this is not just Islamic thinkers, I think this is across the board. Maybe a comment on this, Professor Ramadan, but in light of all of these achievements, tabarakallah, who you are as an icon, you are followed by masses of individuals. Let us maybe shed light on the saga that you have just experienced, the difficulties you've just been through, and you have become a victim of the Me Too movement and suffered a great deal as a result and made certain admissions and confessions. Obviously, our spectators are definitely expecting us to bring the subject up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and this is also part of, as much as all what I wrote was bringing, some light and teachings to the readers, my own life is like a book where you will get some teachings and lessons out of this. And I would say I'm a Western Muslim and I've faced challenges. And, when the people think that I have been punished, it's exactly the opposite. What is perceived from outside as a punishment was a call back to the essential. Just come back. That's time now that you have to come back to the essential. And when I was in jail, this is exactly the way I experienced that.
How long were you in jail for?
For almost 10 months.
Oh, no.
And I was isolated, nobody, and I had time to think about, what I did. And at the end of, the day, there is something here that we have to remind the Muslims. Yes, they want to destroy my reputation and to tainted everything about me, but that's not the point. The point is between God and myself. Allah brought me back and said, okay, now you have to check your life and to check and to try to get it right. And what is perceived as a punishment was a blessing. And every day, while I was in jail, I was thanking him for that. I was just asking myself, what if I would have died the way I was? What if? So it's a blessing, calling me back and come back to your heart, and we need to get this right for all the Muslims who are very, very quick. They want to know about your private life. Say, there is something, Allah who is Sattar. A Sidr is protect you, brother. I made wrong, and maybe you, but the question is not the competition of bad. It's just mutual protection.
Were you disappointed, Professor?
By some, of course, I was. I understood that some were disappointed, and I had lots of respect and understanding. I just apologized even to many who say, I apologize, I'm sorry.
Were you disappointed in their reaction, being your friends and your comrades and being your fellow research students and teachers and so on? What did you expect from the Ummah to do when this news came out? What assumptions and did you expect them to have about you?
So just for the benefit of the people who haven't been following your ordeal, you were accused, I think, in 2017 of sexual harassment or rape, I think it was, by a few individuals, and you vociferously denied the charges. You argued for your own innocence. You in fact went to France yourself on your own accord to answer any questions that the police had and investigators. And despite you going there, they locked you up without trial for many months, right? While an investigation was going on. And recently, the investigation has cleared you of any crimes being committed. Is that correct?
Yeah, the investigations coming from the criminal brigade, as they call it in
Okay.
France.
It's like the prosecution service.
Exactly, it's the police is searching and investigating all the new facts and evidence are just showing that there is nothing and that they lied and everything. But still, the judges are, because it's not, it's not a moral case; it's a political setup, and it's clear now that they are just trying to add because they know that there is nothing. Even my lawyer is saying there is Ramadan's affair is over. So that's the point. I know that it's political, but there are many levels, and I wrote a book about the story, and I tackled all the levels. The first and the most important one, the one will remain. The one which will remain is the one which has to do with the spiritual dimension. The teaching here is that what happened. And I wrote about it because I wanted it to be a lesson for myself, because it was a healing process. It's all about shifa. And shifa in Arabic is not only your body, it's everything. In the Quran, shifa lil mu'min. It has to do with something which is helping you to get health. And health is a holistic concept in Islam. And what I went through was to come back to the holistic dimension. My heart, my relationship with Allah, my relationship with my own family. And the signals and the signs that you can get that Allah loves you or still is here with you and protecting you is by the reaction of those you love. My wife and my children, the way they were with me and the way that they were so close to me just was something which was a sign that Allah was close by making them close. And my mother, I was in touch with her every day after 2 months where we were cut. So this is the first level. And then there are other lessons which has to do with the prison system and this structural racism that we have, not only in France, by the way, you have it in the States, but you have it in Britain, you have it in Europe.
This is before anything was established against you, to make it clear. So nothing was established, despite that you suffered a great deal.
But they know that.
And you suffered a great deal in solitary confinement and in your court proceedings.
Yeah.
Can you tell us some of what you went through?
So the point here is that I wanted to finish about the third teaching for us is beyond the prison system is the discussion that we had just before about our involvement in this society. In which way are we going to be an added value? So I would say that part of the added value that I can bring to this society is to write a book about, look, this is what is going on now in this society and just unacceptable. So this is the overall teaching. Now, what I experience in prison is first there is something which is called presumption of innocence. And after I went out of jail, I met here in the suburbs in France, because here we are in Paris, but we're in the Paris suburb here. And I met a guy who told me, you know what, when you are an Arab or when you are a Muslim, when you enter the police station, you are already
presumed guilty.
Yes. But when you are white and rich, you enter and you go out of it and you are innocent. And this is what I experienced. I went to the police and straight away, it was as if I was talking to the media, because the media were connected to this guy who was asking me questions, and straight away it was outside. And so you say, okay, what's that? So I knew from the very beginning that I was a target. Why? Because, in fact, not because I'm calling for jihad, or let's put it that way, I'm calling for political and intellectual and a liberating jihad of all the oppression in this society, which is a peaceful jihad for justice. And I was targeted for that. That was quite clear for me. So the way they treated me the first 2 days, and then when I was in jail, I was sick. Even the doctor in the first prison when I went, he said, that's not possible. You cannot stay here because it was degrading and everything was bad. About I was unable to walk. I was falling and I had headaches and so it was very difficult. And he said, this is not compatible with imprisonment. But his name was Farid. Farid helping Tariq.
The doctor.
Yeah, the doctor was Farid. So the lawyer of one of the women say, who is this Farid saying that it's not compatible with prison? So they left me in by having someone having a racist statement during the court just to dismiss the point of a doctor, because this doctor was an Arab and a Muslim, helping a Muslim. And it was like this at many levels, with the judges not listening even, all what we were saying, what you mentioned about the criminal brigade or squad and the investigators. They are themselves, they had a mandate from the judges to go for these investigations, and they end up saying the women are lying. And the
They
judges
said that?
don't. Yes, they are lying because we have facts now, and the judges, they don't want to listen.
So the system has been politicized.
It's a political affair. It's not.
It's amazing. We've been convinced that in the West this doesn't happen.
You are kidding. It's everywhere. And I compare the political climate in France today with Islam, with what happened at the time of Dreyfus in France, where anti-Semitism was everywhere. And you had a very important French writer called Émile Zola, who said, he wrote an article saying, you are putting or condemning Dreyfus, not because he is guilty, but because he is Jew. And I'm telling this climate that we had at that time, the end of the 19th century, it's exactly the way you are treating me has nothing to do with facts and evidence. It has to do with the fact that you are dealing with one who you consider as a Muslim leader. And just one thing that I have to add to this is in May 2018, I met with somebody working with the French intelligence. And he met me in 2018, 1 year before this story started. And he told me, we know what you are doing. You are now, because I asked for the French nationality. I asked for the French passport when the French president was saying, there is no way now someone can have two nationalities. He was not talking about being Swiss and French. He was talking about being Algerian and French, Moroccan and French, coming from the south. For them, it would have been quite difficult to deal with me because I'm Swiss. So I'm asking for a second nationality. What are you going to do with me now?
You might be quite a staunch competitor in the presidential elections as well.
And look, the first one who told me this when I went on a mainstream interview on TV, he said, why do you want to become French? Are you running for presidency?
He gave you the idea. You weren't thinking about it.
Did they say it seriously or as mocking or sarcastically?
Because the perception is they were scared of me being involved. So when I met with this guy from the French intelligence, he told me, you want to take the nationality. You are now setting an institute to train the people in France. You have a French platform with all the leaders from the country. And third, you are looking for a big venue to be able to give your lecture, because the problem is that this is the only country in the world when I cannot give a lecture. I have not been in any French university for the last 15 years. It's impossible. I cannot. So
really?
in the
Why?
UK, because I am a terrorist, because I'm dangerous. So the point here is that you have this intelligence telling me this 1 year before. And some of the intellectuals saying, oh, something is going to happen to Tariq Ramadan. So I knew that something was around, that I was targeted. And this is what happened. Now, my position, now coming back to this, is Alhamdulillah. And I have to thank Allah for bringing me back to the essence of the message. So, and from when I entered, Jalal say, Asa an taqrahu shay'an wa huwa khayrun lakum. That's the starting point of everything.
Translation for the verse, Salman.
So you might detest something and it's good for you. And this was always here in my mind, in my heart and everything. So the spiritual dimension is something that I'm dealing with it now, and it has been a long and very fruitful journey for me from within. And then that's something that it's also part of the teachings that we are talking about. But there is another one, and the other one is get ready. Because if they start with Ramadan because he's visible, they can do this with everyone.
This is despite your da'wah, according to some, being quite, let's say, friendly and acceptable.
France.
Yeah, let alone those who really want to come up with something that sounds a lot more radical, or maybe in a shorter period of time. But Professor, I'm fascinated by some of your...
Maybe that is why he's the professor is a target. So somebody who is openly kind of saying, we don't want to engage in the system. We hate France, and
they called you in the past a wolf in sheep's clothing, I think.
Whatever, but be clear. You have to be clear on the way you define and you understand my work. I'm not friendly. I'm not. I'm strict on principles and open to humanity. It's not to be friendly. So be careful. You have people who are very harsh with words and completely lost with vision. We need to have a vision here. I'm friendly with the good. I'm harsh with the bad. رحماء بينهم أشداء على الكفر. You have to be clear on with whom you. So this way of thinking that I was very nice with the West. I was not. I was very, very harsh with everything in the West, but not only in the West, in Muslim majority countries, which was wrong as to our principles. So it's not about being nice or good or bad and harsh. It's about how much do you stick to principles and you are ready to be vocal. And to be vocal means kalimatu haqq. So that's the point, is أمام السلطان الجائر, it's whoever you face, Muslims or people of other faiths.
A word of truth in front of a tyrant ruler. Yeah. So going back to when you actually heard the allegations against you, you presumably saw it on the media. How did you feel when you first heard about those allegations? Is it something that you weren't surprised with because you thought something was coming, some kind of a smear campaign or attack was coming?
No, I was expecting something to come. I was not expecting something like this. I was, a brother called me and say, you're accused of rape. Say, sorry, that's not going to work. That's impossible. And I didn't take it seriously at the very beginning. Say, okay, it's going to. And then straight away, within 2 hours, 6 journalists at least called me. And then I understood that something was going. But then for 2 months, while they started the investigations, and I kept quiet. I said, I'm not going to talk to journalists. They call me. I don't know, more than 30, or I don't know how many call me that they want to interview me. I said, no, I'm not going to speak. I am only going to speak to the police and to the judges, if there are judges. And I kept quiet. In fact, today I'm told by people, you should have said something at that time. I don't think it. I think silence was a good strategy. And in fact, whatever would have been, my position, and we should not say lao. In fact, they had in mind to put me in jail. When I entered the police station, I understood that. So at the end of the day, I didn't take this seriously. It was so
absurd.
It seems your reputation, Professor, was the targets from the beginning.
Yeah.
And ironically, it came at the same time that the rift between the Gulf states happened on the back of Qatar's funding, maybe of the Muslim Brotherhood and their support. So I was following some of the Arabic media, and I found some elements of the Arabic media on the other side of that rift quite happy and gloating at the fact
that's exactly what
been
happened.
Accused. And maybe they had a hand, or they had a role to play in taking part in the defamation, or maybe would you take it to an extent further and say that they may have even given money to organizations or individuals to spur the story further?
Look, what we have in the file today is 2 countries where 2 of the girls were connected to 2 countries in the region that were involved in the whole thing. And they were talking about money. They were talking about... so everything was translated, by the way, in the Emirates and also in Egypt. In Egypt, they had talk shows about me. It's very happy, the grandson of, and then this is what he's doing, and covering exactly. The French media were translated the way they were, with no critical take, with no nuances, just translation, and just to add and to add and to add. So what you are saying is quite clear, that there was a political, instrumentalization of this in the region, in the Muslim majority countries, just to target, some of the opposing political forces by saying, oh, they are all corrupt and immoral. Look at him; he's the symbol of that in the West. So yes.
Because there was a concerted effort to prescribe the Muslim Brotherhood in Europe and in the US
and
as
saying,
a terrorist
saying
organization.
that he's, the
grandson of the founder.
Not only this, he is the one who is the leader of the movement in Europe.
Right.
This was what
just because of your lineage.
And
so you're the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood in Europe?
I'm not, and they know that. It's just a political game on this. But let us be serious about that and say, okay, if you know this, and it seems that I'm dealing with 2 young British Muslims understanding the political game here. If you know this, you understand that not only in France, but in Europe and in the States, you see political forces who are instrumentalizing the whole story. One of the main objectives is to cut me from the grassroots and say, that's not your leader. That's not he cannot represent, look, he's immoral and he's bad and so on and so forth. That's fine. What you could expect from the Muslims, being a bit educated, understanding the political equation, is not to fall into the trap. In the name of your morality as Muslims, to be politically trapped as citizens. You have to get that right. So they are using, I never saw the French politicians loving the Islamic morality as they were in my case. They liked it so much, say, oh, you are immoral, Islamically speaking. And the Muslims, some of the leaders, falling into that trap, and in the name of Islamic morality, taking a stand which is against the Islamic morality, because nothing in the Islamic morality could justify you judging your brother that way.
And interestingly, beforehand, they were attacking the hudud that are put in place to stop such actions.
To
stop false testimony and that kind
everything.
of stuff.
So you have this. On the other side, you can. So the political game is to play with the Islamic morality against the Islamic moral standards, to use this against. So in the name of Islamic morality, the Muslims were neutralized, religiously speaking. And it happened exactly the same on the political ground. They say, oh, don't speak about the political. No, it has nothing to do with the political setup. And you have some of the leaders, with all what we said about, the evidence are just showing that I'm innocent. Some of the leaders, Muslims, say, we have to wait for his innocence to be said and to
established.
be established. Yeah. How come you can't speak? How come you don't understand? So you have morally neutralized, politically neutralized. At the end of the day, you are nothing in the society. Keep quiet and disappear. This is what is happening.
Do you think the Muslims fell for that trick then, by and large, or
no? The leaders. Because when I'm walking in the streets and I'm meeting with average Muslims, I say, well, we know what is happening. We are not, it's we got it. So the great majority at the grassroots level are not even following some of the leaders, because some of the leaders are going through political calculation in moral disguise. Get that? It's just, we spoke about morality, but in fact, we are politically trying to be accepted by the authority. And I'm sorry, you know, for the last 30 years, I have been teaching for some of these people. And I just realized, getting out of prison, that they didn't get the message. They invited me to speak, but they were not listening to what I was saying. Because I was saying exactly the opposite. Because in the name of Islamic morality, you help your brother, you forgive your brother, and you stand up for justice against the oppressors. That's what you have to do. If you don't do this, you are playing with the Islamic morality in the name of political calculation.
I mean, they have attacked you due to your lineage to the Muslim Brotherhood, even though the Muslim Brotherhood were the first organization to realize a true democratic experiment in their own countries. So that's another irony in the way they have. But is it an accusation to be part of the Muslim Brotherhood?
This is the way they put it. Let me be clear on this, because even some Muslims don't get this. You know, I'm proud of my grandfather. I'm proud of what he did and what he achieved. And you will never hear something from me against, you know, his spiritual teaching, his social commitment, and what he did in his life. Now,
so your grandfather was Hassan al-Banna.
Hassan al-Banna, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. Does it mean that I agree with everything he said or did? No. Because he was in a specific context, in a specific society. I'm not dealing with the same challenges. He gave answers for his time. I have other answers for my time. And who taught me this? Himself, following whom? The Prophet ﷺ. So that's the point. Find your answers for your time. So I may disagree on some of the answers. I may disagree on the structure of even the organization, very hierarchical, and the way the decisions were. That's my position, and I was not a member. But I would never, in the name of some disagreements, just demonize his contribution and his legacy. That's not going to happen. This is what they wanted me to do. In order to be accepted, reject him. It will never happen, because I'm rely on principles and what he did.
What do they want? Do they want you instead to support the tyrannical monarchies who have put them in jail and persecuted them?
What they want is to give up with the Islamic principles and just to sell out everything, which is, you know, the center of. In fact, if you are being able to deal, or if you accept to deal with them in their terms, you are going to be accepted. If you say, no, that's not the way. So, for example, say, look, my grandfather, rahimahullah, said to the British, if you don't get out of this country, which is not your country, the people are going to stand up against you. Oh yes, I'm proud of him. Saying this to the British. Saying this with no weapon. He never used a weapon. I'm proud of him saying, you don't use weapon in Egypt. But if you go to Palestine and you have to resist this extremist Zionists that are coming, Stern, and these people are coming, and Irgun, coming to kill, you have to resist and say, you are and you will be the people resisting in the name of Palestine. Oh yes, I'm proud of him. I'm proud of somebody who said this, and saying this in the name of what? My understanding of La ilaha illallah is freedom for us and freedom for you. But if it means for you that it's freedom for you at the price of our freedom, you will find us and you find him. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just on this. My spiritual life is based on this. It's this. Now, this is a point where I respect and I support. Now, as to the organization, as to being a member, I'm not. Now, to expect from me to say about the Muslim Brotherhood what they are not, Are they extremists? That's wrong. Are they legalists? They are legalists. Are they spreading violence? It never happened. I may disagree with some of the positions that they took, in what we called the Arab Spring, which I never called Arab Spring. For me, it was a mistake of appreciation and evaluation of what happened. This was my position. I think they made big political mistakes. That's my position. But at the end, could I support the coup d'etat? Could I support the army because they made political mistakes and they were not dealing with the society? And you know what? I may surprise you, but for me, the first political mistake they made is just to be involved in the presidential election. And I wrote this: you are going to win, which means you are going to lose. I wrote it. This was my statement. To win will be to lose.
Did you feel that the environment wasn't ready for their presence?
I'm sorry to tell you the truth. The environment was not ready. They were not ready themselves. That's my position. But this is a political, this is a political interpretation. This is a political understanding. We may disagree. But now, to expect from me, with these, political disagreements, to say about them that they are extremists.
They wanted you to sell them out, basically.
But no, it will never happen, because I think that we have to be just with, I may disagree with some of the political decisions made by Muhammad Mursi, rahimahullah. But he was mukhlis. He was sincere. He was honest. And he was trying to serve. And no one will find me say something else about him. As I would say that Sisi today, he's a dictator, he's a corrupt, and we have to resist anything which is coming from him.
So, Sheikh, going back to Ahmed's question, we were talking about what you regarded as those Muslim leaders kind of falling for the trap and kind of turning their back on their brother in his time of need. Do you think any did you feel that across the board, or were there some instances of people giving you solidarity and you feeling that? Because I've seen a few in UK and in USA. I saw Sheikh Yasir Qadi, for example, deliver quite an impassioned speech at one of the conferences, saying literally, shame on you. You invite him, and in his time of need, nobody is speaking out for him. Did that message, that talk reach you, and how did it make you feel, if it did, when it did? Assalamu alaikum, guys. Last reminder, I promise. Head over to islam21c.com/donate to help this movement get to the next level. So we have genuine, high quality media articulating Islam in the 21st century and developing confident Muslims impacting the world for the better.
Yes, of course. I got voices around the world. In the UK, you have some voices. That was one of them. Barakallahu fi, and your movement, to tell you the truth, all what you represent. And this happened also in the States, in other Western countries, where some were vocal, and some of the academics around the world were also vocal, Muslims and people of other faiths, but Muslims were. So we had, support, and that was also very important for the people who were supporting my family while I was in jail. That was not easy, but I got this. Now you have some, trends. To tell you the truth, which is really strange, that among what we call the Salafi trend, many were supportive, and on the other side of the spectrum, you have some Sufi who are supportive. I'm talking about the Sufi who are traditionalists, not the Sufi without Islam. I'm talking about the real trends and the serious. And in between, you had people who were dealing with political, as I said, calculation and issues, and who, some fell into the trap and were not here. So recently, over the last, because I came back with the book, and after 2 years of silence, I came back, and to be vocal, I had something to say. I cannot just let the people speak on my behalf or say whatever they want to say. So I came and I said, okay, I will have one media appearance on mainstream TV media in France.
Yeah.
And I did. And I did one within the Muslim community. And what was very surprising is the reaction of some of the leaders who thought I was dead, or thought that I was not going to come back, because I was, the seat, or the perception that the empty seat was, for them. And some of them were even speaking like this, that, we don't need him anymore, and that shame on him. Why is he should just leave and disappear and take care of himself, but in ways which was not so respectful. I decided not to respond to this. My only answer is silence, is peace, and I hope for you the best. As for me, I the only thing which remains for me is in my relationship with Allah and my brothers and sisters in humanity and in Islam, is to serve the message. So the everything as for my future will be dealing with this and only this.
I mean, it's very easy to underestimate the power or the importance of solidarity and unity amongst Muslims from different backgrounds, different schools of thoughts and movements and so forth. And just it's easy to underestimate the strength that you can get just by giving moral support to someone. I remember when, Rabbani from Cage, he was arrested and he went through his kind of ordeal. He refused to give passwords for some privileged client information, a torture victim, subhanAllah. And as a result, he was convicted and he got a terrorism charge. I remember Sheikh Haytham then, in a meeting, he said, don't underestimate the impact just giving moral support has on your brother. Because he said, even the Prophet ﷺ, Allah gave him moral support. نون والقلم وما يسطرون ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم. That the Prophet ﷺ is being told, you're not a madman. You're in fact on the highest standard of character. Allah is giving him that moral support. So if that's the Prophet ﷺ, he receives
but
that.
It's everywhere. When you get this from the Prophet ﷺ, you get this also from the very beginning, when he came back home and his wife Khadija was here and supporting him, saying, you're great, so you cannot be misled in the whole thing. And I think that's very true. Even when I went out of jail, and I some of the people you're talking about, Sheikh Haytham, but the people it's one word, one presence. And when I was in jail, you cannot just imagine the impact of some of the letters I got, even though they took from me 4 months. My letters disappeared for 4 months, but still I got letters, and I had people. One of them, I didn't even know him. He wrote a letter per day, and it was 2 or 3 sentences, but it was there, and I didn't get all of them, but I got a lot of them. And these words of support are so important. Solidarity and helping your brother to show solidarity and mercy and presence and forgiveness and I would say, do this and keep quiet. Keep quiet. Just stop talking about everything else, and instead of just trying to justify yourself and try to get more than what you need to know about. At the end of the day, it's between your brother and Allah. It's not in the ba'd al-dhanni ithm is husn al-dhann, is the best attitude, is the positive, the positive doubt even that you can have about somebody. And it's a teaching. I think that I'm not the same. I changed a lot through this experience, and I think that even my teachings are going to change and be transformed by this.
Do you think you've been radicalized? Do you think you've been radicalized against
it's
even more kind of
radical mercy?
Mercifully radicalized.
All of these experiences, Professor Ramadan, have obviously shaped your character, as you've just mentioned. And they will be massively beneficial for the celebrity da'wah scene which we're seeing today, where you can give a half-baked khutbah, and then you come out and you've got 15 marriage proposals, and you're invited to the international conference on climate change.
Ahmed does a lot of khutbahs, mashallah.
But in this environment where it's so easy to become famous, obviously for you, you've put in a lot of hard work, but for us, it's very easy. You can give a lecture or two on social media, and suddenly all the lights are at you. Everybody's speaking of your praises. What advice would you give to these youth who are enjoying the limelight and who haven't experienced these developmental challenges which you have experienced?
I think that, once again, that's an essential question. Because at the end of the day, it's the very understanding of what Tawheed means in your life. And if you deal with Tawheed, you have to deal with your ego. And at the end, there is, in his way to being killed at the time of the Egyptian, awakening, and my nephew was on his way of being killed, and he didn't know that. And he was killed on, it's Rab'a, it's all this sitting and everything. He was there, and on his way there, while he didn't know that, he was repeating to the one who was with him, "We have to renew our intention. Why are we going there? Are we going there to be with the people, or are we going there to serve Allah's message?" And to renew the intention, it's important. And I think to anyone who at one point you just start talking, the people are looking at you and you become a name and a figure, you have to reassess this. You have to renew your intention. Say, okay, who am I serving? Who am I trying to please? You or him? Allah or the people? And also something that I think it's important. There is this dua saying, Allahumma ansurna ala anfusina. Just give us victory on our own self. That's an essential point, but you should avoid arrogance by thinking that you can do this on your own. You need him, Allah, but you need your beloved people around you, your wife, your parents, your children. The way you are surrounded, the saying, which is true. Tell me who are your friends, I will tell you who you are. Tell me who are your brothers, who are the people around you. And it took me this experience to just get it right, that I was not surrounded by some of the good people and the right people. Then they are not there. So by bringing me back, Allah was also sending a message. Come back to me, renew your intention, check your brothers and sisters around you, and let them protect you for your own self. And I think that this is the way we have to try to deal with this, because it's tricky. And when you think that you serve the message and at the same time you don't do what is right with your own self, that this is why you understand that the shaitan shaghal, that the Iblis is working on you from within, and you have to check. So this is al-muraqabah al-mustamirra, which is the way you deal with your own self, a self-assessment of your own spiritual journey.
Well, Jazakallah khair for all your time. I'm very wary and conscious of the time that's just flown by.
It was a pleasure. Jazakumullah.
I really, Jazakallah khairan for your time. And
Jazakallah khairan, Professor Ramadan.
Ahmed appreciates it too.
Thank you so much.
I had to got to practice a bit of my French. Alhamdulillah. Merci bien.
Ce fut un plaisir.
Ce fut un plaisir. Yeah. You're welcome. Jazakallah khairan everyone for watching as well, you at home. If you liked it, please give it a like and a share. Give us some comments, feedback, and join the conversation in the comment section below. Just another reminder that we're on all of the podcast platforms, hopefully now, inshallah. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can subscribe to Islam 22 and see there as well. That's it from me. I've been your host, Salman Butt. This is Ahmed Hamouda, co-host, and we've been with our gracious host, Professor Tariq Ramadan. I'll see you next time, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Unscripted.